Hello, hello. How are you guys? Hopefully this is working. I'm just going to grab it up on my phone to double check because before I know I haven't been able to always see you guys' comments. Hello, hello. I don't know if that restarted or not, but I'm just going to check that we are live. So I'm just going to head on to the Facebook page real quick just to be sure because technology is rarely my friend. I don't know if many of you are really great with that or not, but I am not. Okay, let's have a look. There we go. We are on. So let's get that off. Okay, so I think I can see all of your comments now, which is good. Oh, hi Alicia, how are you? Um, Debbie's there, that's nice. And Jody, how are you? I think I can see most of you now, which is great. So, seeing as you're on, I will just get right on into it. If you want a chance to win a toddler clock or a new sleep sack, because that will probably be one of our next talks. Hey, Andrea. Thank you for commenting on that. I'm live, yay. So yeah, if any of you want to participate in getting a free toddler clock or a sleep sack, go on, check in, say hi, comment, or write a question, and you'll be automatically entered into winning one of those things. And I will do a draw by the end of the day and we'll announce the winner. Hey Jody, how's it going? Like I was just about to say is that the time change is coming, but also it's nearly time to change to the sleep sacks, and so we'll be doing a little bit of a recommendation on that one as well, because as the weather gets colder, it can cause night wake ups and early morning starts and things like that. So anyways, I know most of you are busy or working around naps, so I'm going to hop right into it. Hey Sabrina. Um, so with the time change, the annoying thing about this one is that fallback, obviously, your 6 a.m. wakers potentially can become the 5 a.m. wakers. Your 8 o'clock bedtime is going to get earlier and things like that, or your 7 o'clock gets earlier to 6 o'clock, and so you really want to prepare for that in advance. And the reason being is that with all of our circadian rhythms and things like that, our body has essentially it's like little clocks all over your body. So when I think of circadian rhythm, 5 years ago, I just thought that was when I wake and when I sleep. But actually, it has more to do with all of the things that go on in your life, like when you have a bowel movement, or when you regularly eat dinner, or when your alarm clock goes off, or all of these like little things are triggers. And so, what we're going to try and prepare for your child in advance for is making sure that any of those triggers have been adjusted slightly before the time change happens, so that it's a bit of a softer transition into the new time change, so that hopefully you're not getting the super early rises. How I'm going to suggest doing that is start adjusting your child's sleep routines, and meals and naps and those types of things by 15 minutes every 4 days. Now, we have about 2 weeks, so if you guys were to start this weekend by switching your schedule around by about 15 minutes, then you would comfortably be into the new time change before it even happens. And so, for instance, if your baby is usually going to bed at 7:15, at 7 o'clock, you would start adjusting the bedtime later to 7:15. And equally, when you move the bedtime, you must move the morning time. And so the morning time, if you typically start after 6, would be like 6:15. So for some of you, that might mean that you're leaving the baby in the bed to kind of hang out. If they're happy, don't worry about getting them up. For those of you that already have an early riser, and you're used to getting up early, like before 6, sorry, my strong suggestion is you must wait to at least a 15-minute later than usual time to actually feed your baby. So if you would usually get up at 5:30 in the morning, and you would go to the living room and you would feed them, what I'd like for you to do is actually keep them in a nice dark environment, whether that's in your room or in their room or in the living space, and simply not feed them for an extra 15 minutes. And you're going to do that every 4 days. Now, it sounds drastic in the start, but it's because you're going to move everything else. So nap time will then be 15 minutes later, which means their lunchtime will probably be 15 minutes later, which means dinner time will be 15 minutes later. So really keep in mind that if you're used to eating at 5:30, I really want you to shoot for more like 6:45 and then 6:45, 5:45 and then 6 and then 6:15 until you get to 6:30, because you're obviously moving the whole schedule along with it. And this is also true for those of you who feed in the night. If you typically feed between like 12 and 5, or if they're used to getting up around 2 a.m. or something like that, make sure that you try and delay the feed a little bit if it's possible. So that might mean that, you know, you give your baby some physical comfort. You might pick them up and rock them a little to try and stall the actual time that they're going to feed just by an extra 15 minutes. And that will really start to help things along. Now the difficult part's going to be is that this year is Halloween on Saturday and it's a full moon, and I don't know if you guys are particularly superstitious, but I really am. And full moons are, they send the dogs crazy, they send the babies crazy, no one sleeps the way that they should, and so you're probably already going to be in for it anyways. And then add into the fact that you also have Halloween, which is obviously a lot of sugar for most families. That could be quite tricky. And so just a word of caution around it being Halloween is that for those of you who have young babies, and maybe that's their first introduction into like a true Halloween, be careful how much you expose them to. It took my son probably 3 or 4 years to actually, we couldn't trick or treat in the nighttime because he was too terrified of the costumes. And so we really had to trick or treat really, really early. And then we spent the rest of our night hanging out as a family, sort of playing games. And just having a good time versus being out and scared and overstimulated and things like that. And so, you know, keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you are going to be trick-or-treating because you do have older kids, or you're going to let them indulge in some kind of sugary treats, really try to fill their belly up with a really good dinner first. Use dinner as a negotiating point. Is that if you want them to have, you know, a relatively good night and not be craving so much sugar, if you work hard to make sure that they get a nice full dinner and limit the amount of candies and set the expectation early, saying like, okay, but you're going to go out and get all these candies, but you only get to have 2. That's all you get to have tonight, right? How many do I get to have? And the child's going to say, oh, I get 2. And so you're just going to make sure that you follow up and be really sure about that sort of expectation ahead of time, just so that you don't get the tantrums heading into bedtime. For many of you with older kids, you might end up actually with a much later bedtime than you were typically used to anyways. Keep in mind, if you surpass bedtime by too much, in correlation with actually adjusting the bedtime in advance to prepare for the time change, really late bedtimes typically end up in really early mornings. So if your 7 o'clock bedtime is now an 8 o'clock bedtime, so that you can account for the time change, but you don't put them to bed until 9, chances are you are still going to have an early wake up the next day. And so my advice there is, you know, don't panic. Try to stretch them as long as you can in the morning and get to as close as to a regular wake up time as possible. And if it's not possible and you're just like, no, we're not doing this, we're just going to get up for the day, take them into a living space, keep most of the lights off, keep the stimulation low, and again, try to delay when you give them their breakfast so that you don't accidentally reinforce the wake up because their little body clock is saying, oh, we usually eat at this time, so we're going to wake up, because you could have problems. You could have problems there. So with the older kids, I find the toddler clock is really, really helpful. So you can start to adjust the toddler clock. So by 15 minutes every 4 days, and then just reinforce that clock is sending them back to bed, playing that kind of like that boring games. If they get up before the clock says it's okay to get up, then you're going to walk them back to bed and say, no, clock says it's still time for sleep. So You're going to stay in bed until the clock says it's time to get up. And for a lot of kids, that's like not an easy thing, but it doesn't mean they have to go back to sleep. They probably might lay there, talk to themselves, chat with their stuffies, and that's really fine. It's just, it might be a bit tricky in the beginning to get them through the other side. Um, and then the other thing that you could consider, and this is something I've tried both ways, and I'm not sure which one I honestly prefer. Um, the one time I ended up trying it both ways, the alternate way I'm going to tell you. But so essentially, what you can do is do 50-50. So on the night of the time change, you put them to bed half an hour late, and in the morning, you get them up half an hour later than usual, and you do the adjusted breakfast time, and then within a day or two you do the same thing as you go back to doing your usual bedtime and your usual wake up time. I found that neither one is the perfect scenario. The fact is that when you're adjusting your whole day by an hour, it just takes a little bit of patience, and it really does take a little bit of time. So with this one, you want to be patient, and you really do want to try to prepare in advance, even if you only get half an hour different, and you're, instead of 7 o'clock you get to 7:30. It really will help you in the long run to get to like that more ideal schedule a little bit quicker. And then what else was I thinking for that one? I think that was it. So yeah, you can do the 50-50 thing, or you can start adjusting by 15 minutes. You have more leeway with older kids, honestly, because of course, like half an hour they could be awake extra. It's the littles. It's like the 3 to 9 month olds. 15 minutes can be quite hard on them. And so, as much as I'm giving you this advice, you know your baby best. You are your baby's expert. And so if your baby is just telling you, like, I cannot handle being awake an extra 15 minutes or adjusting my day, try and back the bus up a little bit and go a little bit slower, or try doing the 50-50 thing after the fact, or stick with your regular schedule and just delay when you're feeding them and things like that. So it's not rocket science, honestly. It's nice to know what could potentially happen in advance, especially because with this one, the people that already have 5:30 wake ups or could have 4:30 wake ups. And my best advice to any of you that are my past clients: do your 10-minute checks. Try and wait it out as best you can. So if your 5:30 does turn to 4:30, that does not mean it's time to get up. You really want to hold out for 5:30 because you already didn't have the desirable kind of wake up time. And as you know, 5:30 to 6 is kind of a grey area for a lot of young kids. Um, and just remembering that you want to limit their naps and things like that to about 3 hours, so that they're not getting too much daytime sleep, which in turn impacts the bedtime anyways. And for those of you that have little kids, keep in mind it does mean that your naps will get later in the day than they do in usual. So if you've blown through 3 naps by 3 o'clock, you could potentially opt to just do like a car seat or a stroller nap or an extra nap later on in the day to kind of help get you to that slightly later bedtime. We really don't want to be stretching them like 4 hours of awake time to get them to bedtime, because chances are you'll end up having night disturbances or potentially crying when they're going down, which is not ideal either. So yeah, that's time change in a nutshell. I personally am not overly looking forward to it, but my son is an early riser. Well, not so much anymore, but that's only been different for about 6 months now. But he's always been an early kid, but he's always been an exceptional sleeper. So he goes to bed well, he sleeps well, but he's good at 5:30, 5:45. He's ready to just kind of like get going and start his day, and he naps well and things like that. So sometimes you just sort of pick your battles. I tried everything. This is my job, and I still can't get him to sleep past 5:45. But now, like, having him be a little bit older, I think the later bedtime for him as a toddler really suited him better, and that in turn really made a difference in our mornings. But of course, for most of you, you won't be there yet for a little while. So It is what it is. If any of you are struggling after this time change and you've given it a week and you've kind of done all the things, feel free to reach out to myself or Debbie and just let us know what's going on. We'd be happy to give you some extra coaching. And for those of you that have never tried sleep training yet, or need sleep help, or just need a little bit of assistance, but you don't necessarily need to sleep train, feel free to give us a call. We have a variety of different options and different packages to help out with all sorts of situations. And like I said, I'm going to hold out until the rest of the day to see who comments, and you'll be entered in to win that toddler clock or sleep sack. You'll get the choice. Let me just have a look and see if we've got any questions. Andrea, we need to get started now. Is the toddler clock helpful at 1.5? Do you know what? Depending on your child, and I say that lightly, introducing a toddler clock at 1.5 years old is actually a really great idea. I personally don't love the Grow clock. I've used it. Some of my clients use it. It's a really helpful tool, but it's really bright and it is the wrong color for sleep. I know that sounds really weird, but you know how certain lights impact our ability to get sort of that deep restful sleep? Blue is one of them. It's a bad color to have as a nightlight, and the Grow clock, even on the lowest setting, is really terrible. And so my honest suggestion is the Mela. Mella. They sell it on Amazon. I think it's about $49 to $59, but it's colors. And so pick something that makes sense. Like for my kids, like red means stop, green means go. So red or orange or yellow, like red or orange really, was the right color to say it's bedtime. And then green was the right time to say that it's morning time. And so for younger kids that don't necessarily have like a big vocabulary, or obviously they don't read the clock anyways, but the colors are really helpful. And so I would strongly suggest the Mela clock. The Mela clock's actually the one that I'm giving away today as well. I don't have one here, unfortunately. I gave my last one away in a different giveaway, but essentially I'll be shipping it straight from Amazon for whoever wins it. So like I said, to enter, just comment, ask a question, and if I don't get to your question now because you weren't able to join, please make sure that you comment and ask, and I'll make sure to write back to you in the comment section so that you do have the answers to your questions. And I think that was all for questions. That's great. Awesome. And then I don't know if many of you have French speaking friends or friends out east, but we are officially bilingual, which is wonderful. That has been almost the year in the making. So proud of what we've achieved. We are just working through a couple of kinks on the website right now because that just went live the other day, and I can't wait to like fully launch all of that. All of our materials are bilingual. Debbie actually does a talk every Tuesday. We pick the same topic. She does it en français and I do it in English, which is wonderful. It means that we're reaching a much bigger audience and an audience that frankly needs it. There aren't a lot of options there. So if you share this with any of your friends, we do have the same, it's a private sleep group and that's in French. All of our posts should be bilingual from this point on, if I can ever figure out how to post in English and French at the same time. It's not giving me very good options right now, but that's Facebook for you. And yeah, I hope you're all staying safe and well. It's been a complicated year for a lot of people, and you know, I wish all of you all the best, and hopefully stay in touch and see you more regularly on these lives and these catch-ups. And you guys have a good rest of your day.